So let's take it from the top, gang. Thank you for everyone who is here, who happened to be listening in to what we'll call a bit of a pre-show. My name is Katy Robinson. I know many of you, but I have the opportunity to head up our education and events departments across North America. And Stacy, you want to tell the group a little bit about your role?
Sure. I'm Stacy Gillen. I'm stationed in the Midwest, so I'm sitting here in Greenwood, Indiana right now. And I'm the Executive Director of Business Growth for the Midwest. I have all of Indiana with my great owners there, and then half of Wisconsin with my great owners there. And so just work with them on the coaching.
Absolutely. And we certainly want to acknowledge her, even though she's not here, Fiona Petrie. This REAL initiative, RE/MAX empowers ambitious ladies. I always struggle with that one a little bit at the end. This is a cause that is really near and dear to her heart. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, she couldn't be here today. So we'll be missing you, Fiona, but Stacy and I will carry the torch for you. So we also want to welcome in Rachel Reed, who is the co-owner of RE/MAX Shoreline. They operate in both New Hampshire and Maine. We have Sally Leuhman here, who is the broker owner in, am I saying this right, Sally, Boston, Wisconsin?
Yeah, just like Boston.
RE/MAX Realty Pros, and we have Marissa Arnold here with us from RE/MAX Crown Realty in Sudbury, Ontario, joining us from our Ontario Atlantic region. So thank you, ladies, for all being here. What we're here to talk about today, some of you may have heard me chatting about this as we got started, is we've all been on so many COVID webinars and pivoting our business and whatnot, but we want to focus today on things that some of these great and inspiring ladies are already doing and how it's been impacting their business and their lives as members of their communities. So sort of the topic for today is spearheading engagement to build community. So all three of these ladies work with different charities and groups and on different initiatives in their communities. And they're here to tell you about how that's, again, impacted their business and how you might be able to get started. Let's see, Marissa, I want to talk for just a minute about what some of the important initiatives have been to you and why you got involved in them, maybe what you're currently involved in.
Sure. Do you want me to start with what I'm currently involved in, or my why, or what?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you? We'll get to the why. We'll figure out why we all do the great work that we do. But Marissa, why don't you start with how you got into community involvement? You had some, major life changes that happened for you that are notable throughout your life, and sort of where you're at today with what groups you're working with.
All right, I'll try to give you all the Coles Notes version of this. So,
okay.
8 years ago, my brother died. He was my younger brother. It was very sudden and unexpected. And so to make that long story very short, he was a commerce student, business student at our local university. So in his honor, we decided to create a scholarship that we would give away to fellow business students at the university. So the way that works is every year I get to go to the university and I get to play you guys don't have dragons, you have Shark Tank, right? I get to be a shark. And the students have to put together a business plan from idea to prototype to the end. And I get to judge and play a shark, and the winners are awarded our scholarship. So long story short, that's how it all started for me in terms of community involvement. I started giving away the scholarship and realized that you get what you give, and it felt really great, and it was really special to do that. And so that just snowballed into everything else I've done over the years and what I'm doing today.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's great. Marissa, what charities are you currently involved with?
So currently, the biggest one is the Easter Seal Society here. I don't know if you guys have that down there.
The Easter Seals.
Yeah. So Easter Seals provides medical equipment for kids around the world. So I'm involved with the Easter Seal Society. I'm involved with a charity called the Northern Ontario Families of Children with Cancer. I'm involved with the Infant Food Bank, the local infant food bank here. But biggest one would be Easter Seals.
Great. Thank
you.
So
it sounds like you have a lot to do when it comes to children in general? Like you've really, so is that your why you've chosen those particular community involvement?
Well, so yeah, the short answer is yes. It's easy to get involved when you enjoy what you're doing. So I always kind of chose things that were near and dear to me. I have a 3-year-old son, so that's why I chose to work with the Infant Food Bank, and that's why I chose to work with Easter Seals, and the Northern Ontario Families of Children with Cancer just fell in my lap, and I just couldn't say no. It's kids.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
That's great. Sally, maybe take us through sort of the same trajectory there, why you got started and what you're currently focused on.
Well, I was a young mom, just actually, well, this is eons ago. So 22 years ago, I started in real estate. Before we were really even using the internet and MLS in our community. So we didn't really have any of that when I started. It was laying out the envelopes on the table and printing sheets to send to people. And so community was different then. The appraisers would come into the office and look through our books of listings to get their comps. And so you communicated with people a little bit differently at that time, and you couldn't have there was no texting, there was no internet to send things. It was all kind of old school and slower. So one of the things that I did was I did join the Chamber of Commerce for the community, because we actually came here from the cities, from Minneapolis, and this is a small town at central Wisconsin. And, we didn't know anyone. We weren't born here. So to get to know people, I thought it'd be fun to be on the chamber. I'm kind of a joiner and an extrovert anyway. I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought it would be fun. Then I realized that they did this thing called the first dollar for each new business and different thing that started up. And it seemed like, years ago, that was kind of the thing. It was really publicized when people got into business, and they did a first dollar picture. So I thought, gosh, my picture would be in the paper all the time. I thought that was big time. And I think it started at that. People just started recognizing me a little bit more from that. And I would show up and give them the first dollar and participate in that grand opening. And that was just the beginning. And I realized, boy, this could really help my business, because people got to know who I was. And that was kind of the old school start. And then I loved participating in creating different events. So we had I created a half marathon for the community, a spooky sprint for the kids, because this was in the fall. I did a pie baking contest, and I've done all those kinds of things at festivals, and to try to kind of promote me being part of the community, but also having a job as a realtor. It was like kind of hand in hand. I now have merged into kind of more of the city government part of it, which I enjoy a lot more, and it's different than chamber. But the way that I got on the city part was the chamber had to have a person sit on a board for the city hall for tourism. So I ended up sitting as the designated person from the chamber on the board for the tourism, so that the city could spend dollars appropriately. And when I got the real bug was when I had an idea to create a welcome sign in Mauston that said, "Welcome to Mauston." And it was a big $40,000 project. And I kind of thought, gosh, this is really exciting to be able to come back into a community and see something that I really created. That was my idea. And it was easy, because, you're part of a smaller group in the community to make those decisions, and everyone gets the benefit of seeing it. That was really an awesome experience, to be part of a small group in a community to do something bigger. So that's kind of the long and short of it. And I've been involved for 20 some years doing planning commission now at the city hall, and which is really real estate more based, is when you're talking about zoning issues and things like that. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
That's fantastic. Good stuff. Rachel, how about you? Tell us a little bit about what you're up to.
Well, I have been really involved with a lot of grassroots nonprofits. And so currently I serve on 5 different community nonprofit boards. And for me, it's just that, for me, the big aha moment for me was when I was asked to be a member of the Beacon Teen Center board as a newcomer to the junior league, of all things, like 2 or 3 decades ago when I first moved to Portland, Maine area. And what I learned from that experience was that you don't have to run the whole organization to make a difference. So I got involved with the Beacon Teen Center board, and I had an old computer that we didn't need, and I asked if they could use it at the teen center. They said, "Oh, do you have all the old discs?" I mean, this is in the floppy disk age, you know. Do you have all the old discs? So I had all the old operating discs, and I contributed this computer. And then a year later, that teen center had placed 2 homeless kids in college in Boston simply because they had the computer, this little old ancient computer, to do their applications.
That's awesome.
You know, and the only difference I had made was thinking to give them a call before throwing it away at the dump. That was the difference I made. And so for me, that was very impactful. The fact that you don't have to be, you know, donating huge amounts of time to make a difference. And for me, I serve on 5 boards, so I attend 5 monthly meetings. I am usually on a subcommittee, but I probably have 2-hour to 2-hour engagements a week that make that all possible. And so I have found it incredibly gratifying because you learn, and you learn so much. I have learned so many leadership skills from watching CEOs of nonprofits or chairmen of boards run their organizations in different environments. So that's been the benefit to me, has been really understanding outside of the box of my own industry how different things sometimes are managed.
Rachel, tell us how you pick your causes. You said you're on 5. That must mean at least 15 have asked. How do you pick your cause?
So I do have 3 qualifications that I look for when an organization asks me to be on their board. The first qualification is, and of course this doesn't have to apply to everybody. Everybody's going to have a different set of items on their agenda. But for me, it's really important that the funding that particular organization receives goes almost entirely, if not totally entirely, to people that directly will benefit within my communities, where, you know, in Maine and New Hampshire, that's where the money stays, and that those funds are, you know, almost entirely devoted to those people. The second qualification that I have is that they offer leadership within the community, or that they have the potential to, and that would be something that I could help occur. And then thirdly, I have to know that there's something within my own time, talent, treasure that means that I will be able to make a difference. So I don't want to just sit on a board and be an observer. I don't want to run the whole thing because I have a whole else lot going on, you know, but I need to know when I enter that board position that there is something that I can contribute so that I will be able to make a difference. Those are my 3 qualifications.
It sounds a lot like what Sally kind of had talked about with the community. Is, Sally, would it be safe to say that's why you're doing what you're doing, because it's really impacting your local community that you're bringing, you know, you're living in every single day?
Yeah, it makes me feel, you know, everyone wants to belong to something. I told one of my kids are starting up a small window washing business, and my oldest had said to the middle child, well, we don't even need you today then with your attitude. We don't even need you. And I pulled him aside later and I said, you know what? Don't ever tell someone that they're not needed, that they don't come along for a purpose, and I think that we've gotten away from that in small communities, that everyone can come and gripe and say what they don't like about things, but every person's conversation and every thought that they have is needed to make a community better. So I think that people lose track of that a little bit, and I don't know. I think that's important. You got to have a mission or a reason to be involved. Otherwise, things just kind of go along just like in an office does without community or without that culture. They can happen, but it's not as fun and it's not as dynamic and impactful, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
That's what we want to be.
That's a great point.
All of you have spoken about things that you're passionate about. Have any of you, for whatever reason, ended up giving time or resources to a cause that maybe you weren't so passionate about? And how was that different? How were those experiences different? Somebody asked you to be on a board, you felt obligated, you owed them a favor, you thought it was going to be something, it turned into something else. How do you kind of find your true north, and what happens when you're not aligned?
Marissa?
Yeah, been there, done that. I don't necessarily enjoy it in the moment. I know I just have to keep reminding myself that there's a greater good. There's a reason that someone asked me. There's something that I can bring to the table. I definitely don't get as much out of it if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, though, for sure. And it's 100% self-serving to say that, but you get what you give. And if I'm not giving it my all because I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to get as much out of it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Sally?
I've always, I belong to a networking group, and the group became kind of stagnant. There was the same people every week. We all decided that, and after about 6 years we had been together and we'd had different businesses come and go, we all kind of decided that, it was us, but sometimes you need to shift and go into something else where you bring a different set of resources or tools, or sometimes things do need to die in a sense and disband, and those leaders need to go out and do some other things. I felt that I wanted to belong into more of the Habitat for Humanity, so I'm part of that, and I wanted to be part of the Animal Association in town. That was a passion of mine. So it allowed me to be able to say, you know what, right now, it's just not working, and we keep on trying too hard. Just like in relationships, sometimes you got to kind of like back up and take a breath and say, well, maybe my resources are better spent somewhere else. And you can't feel emotional about that. It is what it is. Sometimes things just need to leave and go a different course, and I don't want to say it's quitting. It's just shifting. It's pivoting, right? Like we talk about. It's taking a pause and looking at it and kind of going in a different direction, just like business does.
Yeah.
So we do the stop, start, repeats a lot here at INTEGRA, and that feels like you sort of taking stock of that, stop, start, repeat, continue, stop, start, continue, I guess. Yeah. Rachel, anything to add on that?
Well, I think it goes to what Rachel just said too, Rachel, about your talents, where you feel you're better adjusted to help other people.
Right. And I think also the other piece is that I actually enter a board position explaining to them that I don't plan to be there forever. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important. I mean, it may be different, for example, in Marissa's case, where she really, she founded something, and that's very different. But when you're coming into, another community board, I think that it's important to kind of come in with a reason, and at some point you've really addressed that aspect of that organization. And if boards don't turn over now and then, they don't get fresh ideas, just as Sally was discussing.
Yeah.
It's very important that you have to kind of know when to come in and when it's time to leave and make room for the next new idea.
Well, it's in any leadership position, you have to have some self education, and kind of knowing your surroundings, some kind of interpersonal skills, and kind of a social awareness of how you might not be impacting. It could be you. It could be, and so it's being able to kind of be more self-aware. And then if the other people in your group aren't self-aware, I sometimes feel that I can't help that. I can't do what I want to do in a group. And so I have to shift and kind of leave, because it leaves me so drained. If the basics aren't there of a group, sometimes I just have to walk away. If there's no goals, if there's no vision, if there's no reason to be meeting and doing. And sometimes for that networking group that I was in, I said, you know what, it's okay for our goal to be, if we come together every week and just talk. If our goals are just to have a relationship, then that's fine. I'm there. But if we are trying to build business and we're not doing that, then I need to go somewhere else that I'm focused on building my business. So the reasons need to be there for that, community group, whatever you're involved with.
Sally, I think that's a great segue. I know all of you. I know all of you personally, but some better than others. Just based on the amount of time we've had to spend together. But you talk about being able to build your business based on this group, and I know everyone here is doing the work for good, because for good sake. But I think you all probably could tell us a story where there's been a byproduct of the work and the leadership that you've shown your community that's benefited your business. Could you maybe take us down that road a little bit, Marissa? I know you did this amazing Dancing with the Stars concept, and you're filling the cribs, and you're bringing the cribs to the banks and whatnot. You're meeting people when you're doing those. What kind of connections have you made that have made your business stronger?
Yeah, like I said before, I'd be lying if I said that this wasn't self-serving. There's the karma aspect of it, but how many people do you get to meet when you're involved in all these organizations and when you're doing all of these things and getting out into the community? I can't tell you how many people I've met and interacted with as a result of all of these crazy things that I've decided to get myself involved in, or all of the boards that I've been on, or the networking groups that I'm in. I've gotten a decent amount of business and quite a few referrals from all of the things that I'm doing and the things that I'm involved in the community. For sure. Mm-hmm. For sure, it's self-serving.
But in a good way. Because you're filling your bucket, which I think is super important as just a human being, is to find ways to fill your bucket. And then as Katy said, the byproduct is you are going to get business because people want to work with people who are genuine, who are giving back to their local community. It really does kind of go hand in hand.
100%. You get what you give. And so if you're giving to your community and you're out there and you're involved and you're helping people out, people see that. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. They want to work with someone who's out there in the community instead of a stereotypical realtor who's just in their office counting their money.
Yep. Get a bad rap sometimes, unfortunately, as real estate professionals. Sally, how about you? How has it impacted your business?
I've had to make some really hard conversations with people that that I feel are influencers in the community, and I think, and business owners. I do sit on the planning commission, which allows certain businesses to come into community, and some businesses that might not fit the scheme of what we're working on. We had a situation where a small business sold. It was an old bowling alley. They were tearing it down, so it was nostalgic to people, but the bowling alley owner sold it to a gas station, and people didn't like it. They said, we don't like that. We don't want another gas station. We've got 6 in town already. Why are you doing this, the city? And we kept saying, because I'm on planning commission, they checked all the boxes to be a business that was viable in the community. Whether the city wanted it or not didn't matter, because this was a private sale. And I had business owners that owned these gas stations calling me saying, you need to vote this down. And I had to say, I'm in a position where I'm here for the greater good. I understand how this affects your business, but, the city didn't call me say, well, we don't need any more realtors in this town. You can't start your business here. So for that, the benefit, and I look at this as a benefit, it gives me the opportunity to speak to these people that are figureheads or influencers and to be one of those, so that I feel that in time, I'm called to help make some tough decisions for the community. And I felt that that's happened. It helps that I live right next to the mayor too, but that's another, it's who no. Yeah. But when you're brought into conversations that are tough for communities, what do we do about this? How do we go about this? And you're part of that conversation. It's empowering. I felt that that's a benefit to my business because I feel like I'm really in the arena. And that was one of those things that was my motto, is just, am I in the arena? I'm going to get, scarred up and all of that. But I feel that that's a benefit to my business, to actually be involved in the tough things in town. And that will come back to me if I do it respectfully. Some people might not like my decisions, but that's okay. I'm a mom too, and they don't like my decisions at home. So that's kind of, I think that's a benefit to me. And it's a weird benefit, but for me, I want to be making and helping make those hard decisions. That's why I'm here as an entrepreneur, right? That's the mission of why we do things. We like it hard. So we like the challenge.
I agree. Rachel, how about you?
I think for me, it was the advantage has been branding, in that my business partner, Derek Buckspan, and I started RE/MAX Shoreline just a little over 4 years ago, almost 4.5 years ago. And we were, in a position where we had to quickly ensure that we were going to be a known entity. And it did not hurt us one bit to have me out there with a reason. And I think that that's been one advantage, is people seeing me and our name everywhere has been that's been an important thing to have occur. The other reason that I feel it helps my business is that in the role of being co-owner, I think part of what we must always be providing is modeling. We need to be modeling for our agents what they could in fact achieve to the greatest degree we possibly can. And so by being out there, volunteering in the community, it helps my agents to know I'm out there. It helps my agents to have the example. It helps my agents to have our support. We try very hard to support our agents' community efforts that they're making. So it helps everybody be involved. And that just means more presence in the community.
I love that. It's true leadership. I mean, Marissa, you're really leading your fellow agents in your office as well, to see that they can balance not only being a mom, which I think is something we've got to notate as well, as we're women on this panel. Sometimes people don't understand that there's more to that side of it as well. And so you're really leading your agents. What would you say to your agents in your office if they asked, how do I get involved?
My answer would be, pick something that you enjoy, pick a topic that you like, and start there. For me, it was kids, and it was easy for me to get involved, and that's just snowballed into so many other things. There are tons of organizations in every community that are just begging for help. So pick up the phone, ask if there's something you can do, but the easiest way to get involved and the easiest way to ensure you'll enjoy it is to pick something you like.
So true.
For me, that's
fill your bucket.
Yeah.
Sally, how about you? I mean, you're really involved in that political side of the community, which I love. What do you say to your agents and fellow agents in the marketplace on how they should get involved? What are the other things in your market they could do?
Every town has a chamber of commerce, I would guess. Every town has a tourism committee. Every town has, not so much junior leagues, but there's, places like that they can just get involved with. Network marketing. Network marketing is really a good group of people, because like a BNI or something like that, where there's all kinds of different people that are involved, and just communicating. And like Marissa says, it is really important to pick something that you love, because you won't show up to the meetings. You won't want to participate if you don't really love doing what you're doing. I think that's the most fun of being in real estate, is that flexibility of being able to do your real estate while you're helping on the soccer field, or while you're out at, dance or whatever it is, to do your thing all the time. I think that's the most fun. I don't think you need to check off a box of things that you need to do. It's just being you. And most people that get into real estate, I think, either have that social equity they've already built up in their communities. They already know what they do, whether it's being part of a church committee or whatever it is. I don't think it's something that you learn. It is, like we've talked about, it's something that you do, right? It's how you live. Yeah. So, yeah.
We had the benefit to have a pre-call with these ladies. And Sally, something you said. Sally, how old are your kids, first of all?
21, 18, and 17, all boys.
Okay.
Oh, crazy.
So mine are 6 and 9. And there's been several times in the last probably week and a half since we've spoke that something you said has really resonated with me. And I'm trying to get it to be part of the vocabulary and the fabric of our family. You were telling a story about going to a parade, and one of your sons says, "Why do we do it?" And the other one says, what did he say?
It's what we Leuhmans do. It's what we do.
That's right.
Get your shoes on. It's what we do. And I look back and I think, did I ever say that? I don't remember ever saying that. Of course we always deny what we say. I never say that. But it's just what we do. And I remember that. I just put that in my mom vault. That is what it is. And it was a good thing that we were doing good things, because, if we weren't, that's what certain families get known for, of maybe doing bad things, I guess. I don't know what Rick would say, but I was proud of that moment, that they could acknowledge that. Just get your shoes on. It's what we Leuhmans do.
That's right.
That's really cool.
I'm trying desperately to let them know that, Robinsons are helpers in times like these. And, when they're 6 and 9, some days they feel like it, some days they don't, but it's what we do. So I want to congratulate you from one mom to another, and Stacy touched on it, that there is a component of family and being a mom and being a wife and a leader in the community. And it adds another dimension to some of this stuff. So kudos to you and really having driven that home with your family. And Marissa, I know that your child's pretty young still, but how are you bringing those values back inside the home?
Yeah, he will actually be 3 years old tomorrow. Yay! So we had to cancel his birthday party. That's pretty sucky, but
do it virtually.
Yeah. That's another story. But we're working on something. He's a bit young, but we're working really a lot on sharing. And he's come with me to deliver groceries to my grandma lately. And we're going to deliver some other stuff to some other friends. So he's a bit young, but we're starting early. Sharing is not really in his vocabulary because he's a partner. But yeah, a lot of that going on now. And he's too young to be present at Dancing with the Stars, but he has been involved in the crib filling and so just little stuff right now. But
they see it. That's, you start early with them. And Rachel, your children are older, but I believe you also told us a story about how they got involved. Do you want to share that with the group?
Well, okay. So for us, I think that I had grown up in a family where my mother was a social worker, my dad was a small business person in the community, and we were always active in the community. And it was just understood that, you work hard to build a better good around your community, which is part of what we did. And my children started in fairly young. And I think sometimes you don't even understand the degree to which they are picking up on what's going on around them. We sometimes don't give them enough credit for their power of observation. And so at a very young age, my kids really wanted to be active in our local soup kitchen. So as soon as they were old enough, I think the age was 10, they could come in with a parent. And so we started doing that, and they were very adamant that we had to be there on our night every month. And so for years we did that. And then as they got older, they started taking it upon themselves. So, there's that period of teenage years where they're not old enough to work yet, but they're still too old to be at camp and things. At about 14, 15, it becomes a little bit more arduous. And my kids spent those summers working at the soup kitchen, and doing what one of my kids called parties for the people, which was a party. He'd have a party where he'd have let's say the local homeless shelter needed socks. Oh. He would have a sock party, and everybody would bring either soda or chips and a pair of socks, and they would all have a great party that afternoon at our house, and then he would go down to the homeless shelter with 30 pairs of socks.
That's fun. That's great.
So he had this thing going, parties for the people. And then when they went into college, they continued working in all sorts of outreach efforts. So they've done a very good job of carrying the torch forward.
That's fantastic.
Well, and what that shows too, as far as entrepreneurship, is doing something every day, no matter what. It's always doing something, even without knowing what the outcome is, but always something every day, and you will become successful, whether it's empowering yourself and doing good for the community. It's little things. It's not grandiose things, like you said before. It's just small people in little small groups doing these kinds of things. I think that's awesome. I love that. Parties for the people.
I like that a lot. You guys could do that as your offices. That would be really fun. So Katy, we had a great question from Eileen. Have you ever been in a group and have become overwhelmed with everyone looking for you to do all of it, basically, because you're organized and a forward thinker? How do you guys handle a group like that kind of makes you everybody, like you're the one pulling the weight?
My son is in the Air Force. He's in my 21-year-old is in the ROTC program, and he said there's no bad organizations, only bad leaders, is what he says. So he says, Mom, you need to tell number 2 to get his stuff done, because you're not delegating specific enough. So I'll say, Mason, right now, go to the dishwasher and clean it out.
Right now.
So in groups, what it comes down to, and I've led a lot of volunteer groups, and that's where you start. If you can lead volunteers, you can lead other things. You have to say, John, this is what you need to do. Sally, this is what you need. It's almost getting to the basics of kind of like singling out people in order to be able to make it all happen, because it's not just one person. So you need to delegate better is part of that situation. And if those people aren't, living up to the bill, if they're good participators, what are their strengths that they can bring? We always kind of expect people to do their equal share. Just like when we're in groups in high school or college, nobody really did as much work as me in the groups. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We always think that. But it's using their skills and their talents and figuring out a place for them in that group. And you might have to look at it a little bit differently. But delegating is huge. You can't just take it all on yourself, because that's not doing anything for anyone, So that's what I would say, I guess.
I think another thing that's happening, first of all, I totally agree with what Sally just said, that part of leadership is delegation. But I think that what also is happening, unfortunately, right now is that a lot of organizations are having trouble getting new members. Especially if it's a smaller organization, especially if, where there's not as much in the limelight for somebody that joins. And especially if it's one of the older organizations that has a little bit more heavy lifting required of members. But I think even our local Rotary has had some issues, as well as our local community chamber, finding new members that really have time on their hands to pull their weight. So what happened with one organization with which I'm involved is we did reach that point where people could no longer do, it's a very old organization. It's been around for about 100 years. And so, so that was a very different age. And at the time, it's a women's organization. And at the time that it was founded, women were in the home. And now the women that they would hope to have as members they're off being, thankfully, they're doctors and attorneys and business people, and they have lives outside of the home. And so what we did in that organization is we changed, we had to narrow down the focus of what that organization was going to achieve. And we decided the most important thing that we were achieving as an organization was our scholarship program. And so we had to, as they expired, we eliminated the other pieces of what that organization was doing, and we focused in just on the scholarship program, this annual event, and we're able to support that. So hopefully that's a helpful addition.
Yeah, Eileen even said, I thought this was a great follow-up. She said, I'm not the leader, I'm a strong participant. Mm. So how do you help someone like that who's, got a lot of strengths, it sounds like, but she's getting dumped on? Like she's being asked a lot of, and maybe other people are not participating. How do you guys help somebody like that? Because, a lot of us will take it on and we'll just do it. And that's not always the best way either when you're talking about this kind of involvement.
As a mom, how do we do this in the home? When we go back to managing our households and things like that, a lot of times I sat and thought about this, and everyone, people would get frustrated with the kitchen being dirty, and they'd say, Mom, clean the kitchen. Well, it's so dirty. And I'll just be like, oh, clean your kitchen? oh, okay. And so I needed to change the way I was like, don't help me with my kitchen. Let's help each other with the kitchen or cleaning out the dishwasher. It's not my kitchen or my dishwasher or my living room. This is a space that we all use. Sometimes changing your language when you come into those groups and saying, we're all doing this together. And I just want to share with you what I have on my list to do. And I want to ask for a little bit of help. It's like having a team meeting at home. I need help because right now in my life, I've got this going on and I've got this going on. I won't be able to do these 5 items. And I think it's just kind of being direct. I'm a real black and white kind of talker and kind of a driver person. So it's easy for me to say that I need help or I don't. But sometimes I think as moms, we take it on because we just want to get it done fast. And we know how to do it and it's easy when we do it. But you really have to make a conscious effort to say, it's not all my responsibility. And it could be done better if someone else does it. My husband can clean the kitchen better than me and let him do it. Sometimes he doesn't wipe the counters perfect and, doesn't put things away exactly right, but you got to let go of some of that too. So I don't know if it's the person that's taking on those things that they feel like they feel indebted to the group. Sometimes you got to look at yourself and find out if it's you that's also taking it on because you think you're going to do it better than everyone in the group. Mm-hmm. And then I guess the other part of it is just being open and communicate with your group. I've got too much going on and I need help. People will help. They'll step up. They do. So.
That's great. Yeah. We've got a couple other questions here. We have one from Amanda Hawkins. It says, I live in a town where there's a local RE/MAX brokerage and I'm out of a different RE/MAX brokerage. The owner agent of the local brokerage was born and raised in this town. He is already on the Department of Commerce, etc. What recommendations do you have for getting involved locally and establishing a cohesive relationship while differentiating yourself in a small town?
That's a good one.
It's a great one.
And I want to talk out of my turn, but we live in a world of abundance and you have to keep focusing on that. There's so much for everyone. There's an abundance of everything. the fact that he works there and knows everyone and is born here doesn't mean that all his family and friends are going to use him for real estate. We
might be just why they don't.
Right. So there's not just one way to go about it. And, chambers you don't have to have, one business from each group. I mean, you can work together. Mm-hmm. You could also be part of a promotion to pull together things. I know that, the community that's about 30 miles from me in Baraboo, Wisconsin, Nancy's another owner. And I said, hey, there's a wine night down in Baraboo, and I'd like to bring my team down there. What if you bring yours? And we'll have just kind of, I know that's harder when you're closer, but they do list property in my community, and I do theirs. So I think that's a better way to try to help yourself have that perspective is, it's not them and us, it's us, and try to kind of come together and pool your resources instead and thinking about it differently. But then again, too, like Marissa said, there's all kinds of other things that you probably like to do that maybe aren't even part of the chamber. You can do something else too, but.
Yeah, he's on the Chamber of Commerce. You choose something else. You choose something else that he's not doing, and that will help you differentiate yourself. But Sally's absolutely right. There's nothing stopping you from working together and pooling resources if he's open to it. We have 2 RE/MAX brokerages in our town, and we often the brokerages are confused because they're both in the same town. Sure. But we often get together for meetings or to bring in guest speakers or that kind of thing. So there's nothing stopping you from working together. But for sure, there's lots of people who need help.
I love that word abundance.
Mm-hmm. And I think it demonstrates the power of the brand when you work together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have other broker owners in the New Hampshire area so that are on the same board of realtors. And when they have events, we kind of team up and support the brand together. So at a golf tournament, individually as broker owners, we aren't necessarily able to afford the really big flagship sponsorship. But if we all team together and make it a RE/MAX sponsorship, then we all glean the benefits of our brand's visibility. And so I think it's really important to, and hopefully that person's other agency in town is willing and able to have that attitude as well. And if they're not, then as Marissa said, there's always other things you can do. Just find your own arena and be in the arena, just as Stacy was saying.
I love that. Katy, did you see the question from Martha that I think lends into this?
I do, and I think there's 2 that are kind of combined here, so I'm going to take a little bit of a liberty here. The first one says, when you're volunteering, do you ask for business or give a gentle reminder of who you are and what you do? Is the first part of that. The second piece that Martha asked is, when volunteering, do you wear RE/MAX swag or not? Wondering if you keep that visible or if you prefer to be quiet about solicitation. So I think the message is sort of the same as how much are you talking about you and asking for that business while you're there, either by wearing your pin or verbally asking.
So I never solicit. I never ask when I'm volunteering. That's not the primary purpose of my being there. And whether I wear swag or not, it depends. So if I'm volunteering at a community event, like we have a local pond hockey festival that raises funds for a number of charities here, 100%. If I'm there, if I'm there and I'm going to be seeing thousands of people and I'm just the first aid lady, 100% I'm going to be wearing my RE/MAX swag. Mm-hmm. But if I am driving donations to the infant food bank, maybe not. It depends on the situation, I would say.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm the same. I wear the pins a lot on my lapel, just as a subtle reminder. We live in a town of about 5,000, so people, and I've been in it for a long time, people do know that I'm a realtor, so I don't feel like I have to really do that. But I think for people that are starting out, absolutely. And but I always think that it's a reminder that that's who I am. And same thing with Marissa. I'm not there to be the ambulance chaser to toot my horn all the time, because that's not real. And that's not me anyway. Whether if they want to work with me or not, that's fine. So, but you know, they have to know where I am, because people forget. You think everyone knows where you work, and they just don't. They until they need to know, then they figure it out, but they don't remember. So yeah, I do the same.
Rachel?
I'm sorry, Stacy,
No, I was calling on you.
Oh, okay. So I feel like, first of all, I totally agree. It has to be driven by what your activity is at that moment and if it's appropriate. That said, I try really hard to get my company name everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I wear jackets with RE/MAX on it. I have a RE/MAX Shoreline baseball cap that I wear. But I think even more importantly, something that we've done is we've opened our offices to nonprofits as meeting space. Mm. So for me, I think one of the best things that we've done is had our space available for them. And again, there's the lapel pin when you're in certain environments, there's jackets and others, but also getting them into your space is very valuable. And I feel the same way about when I'm out in the community. I'm always wearing a jacket.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I've got one last question here, and I think with three very busy ladies, this is going to be a great one to finish off on. Do you stick to any type of time block schedule to keep yourself sane and help bring balance between family, business, and volunteering? You sort of block, like, I'm going to give it 3 hours a week. Rachel, I know I heard you say, you know, I'm between 2 and 2.5 hours a week on commitments. Sally, with your committees, I'm sure there's some sort of rhythm to that. And Marissa, maybe yours is more seasonal based on what sort of drives are happening.
For me, I had some obstacle with that. I ran myself ragged back in the early 2000s. I had to stop doing so much volunteer work. My goal was really, my mission in life was just to be a full-time volunteer. That's all I wanted to do. And I got involved in too much. My husband said, you need to stop. I was addicted to volunteering, and that can happen. You can get yourself too, you know, and I think as a young mom at that time, I just wanted to be needed. I wanted to, you know, like participate. I wanted to do fun things outside of the home too, and besides my business. And I had a hard time saying no. And I had to stop myself a little bit and get back to a better rhythm. And it is true. You have to consciously make an effort to say, okay, you know, I can only really have a couple meetings this week. I don't know if I don't color code block my schedule too much, but I do use an agenda, and I have to know where I'm going to be the next week. So I don't know. It's just kind of
that extrovert in you.
Yeah, maybe.
It's that socialization that I think, I'm not saying men don't have it, but women I think have it a lot because we want to be out there with people all the time.
Yes.
So we overtax ourselves and overstress our schedules until we realize, wait a second, we're not doing anything good.
Right.
Because we're doing too much.
Too much. That's hard. It's hard to say no. I mean, especially if you really want to do things. You can't do everything. You can't save everyone. Yeah. I would pull over and save every cat on the street, you know, every stray animal. I have to like curb myself. It's terrible.
Oh, that's funny. Marissa, how about you?
Yeah, I think we've all been there where we take on too much and then we get tired and we have to pull back. It's certainly happened to me many times. I don't have a super strict schedule where I block off certain blocks of time every day or every week to dedicate to certain things, but I do have some practices in place. So unless I'm working on an offer, my phone gets shut off at 8, regardless if it's social, if it's work related, it's off at 8. I spend Fridays with my son. He does not go to daycare, have a babysitter on Fridays because I generally work a lot of the weekend. Fridays are my days with him, and I try super, super hard not to work, although it's impossible, but I try super hard to minimize my work time to when he's napping. I've gotten better with a lot of trial and error at learning to say no and learning when enough is enough, but it's just practice and time, really.
I like that. That's good scheduling. Very smart.
Good.
Rachel, how about you?
So I totally time block, and I have ever since junior high. So
That doesn't surprise me even a little bit about you.
Not at all.
No surprises there.
yeah, no, I time block literally for everything. My day starts at 5 a.m. and my day ends at 10 p.m. And in that is stuff for myself as well. I time block time for dinner with my family. I time block time to exercise in the morning. And the important thing is to not let anything break those boundaries.
You seem like you do that very well.
Thank you.
Where the rest of us are like, squirrel, wait a second.
Yeah.
And then
Just
that whole
continue to
thing
push
with
in
that.
on the limits.
Well, we all find our way to achieve, right?
I
And for
love
me, it really required organization. So hats off to those of you who have achieved so much without doing that.
Oh, this has been really great. Stacy, any final thoughts from you? Or
You know what? I just want to thank everyone. I think, you guys have truly inspired me today to think about, especially in this time where we're hunkered down, we're stay at home. When we come out of this, which we will, how can we give back? How can we, not only as real estate professionals, but as moms, as, wives, sometimes not, how do we give back? And I truly am excited about saying to myself, how can I give back into the local community? I live in a larger metropolitan, so it's not as succinct as what Sally has. But you know what? Really reflecting now personally on how do I find a way to give back. So thank you, ladies, for all of that great sage advice and wonderful things that you're doing for the community.
That's really good. No, I would say the same. I spend a lot of time thinking about that. There's one quote that sticks out in my head. I'm big on sort of inspirational quotes. My family hates that I tack them up on like the bathroom vanity, places where I see them. But, one that I really try and live by is, am I doing all that I can with all that I've been given? And I think everybody on this call is doing that, and those are the words, I guess, that I'd like to leave this group and anyone listening with. So we've all been given so much, whether it's a little town or a bigger metropolitan area, there's a way to make an impact.
Agreed. Thank you, ladies.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.